All right. So listen, we're going to go ahead and get this thing rolling here, and then we're going to go to lunch. We got 2 sessions left here, so let's get it going, ladies and gentlemen. Coming to the stage, building a community-led climate resiliency program. At this time, we like to call upon Jill. Jill, you with us? Okay, yeah, Jill. Horwitz with us. Horwitz, okay. Climate Resiliency Officer, Heritage Environment Resource Officer, Seminole Tribe of Florida, accompanied by Crystal Bowers, also with the Seminole Tribe of Florida, Climate Resiliency Policy Coordinator, and last but not least, we got Cody Motlow, Seminole Tribe of Florida, Climate Resiliency Outreach Coordinator. Again, building a community-led climate resiliency program. Let's give from the Seminole Tribe of Florida a warm round of applause to these three individuals. Let them hear you. Let them hear you. Let them hear you.
Thank you for having us this afternoon. We really appreciate the time and your attention. Actually, there's just 2 of us today. Cody wasn't able to make it up today, but she sends her best, and we'll do our best to represent the program, the 2 of us. So, like you said, Jill Horwitz, Climate Resiliency Policy. Sorry, that's you. Climate Resiliency Officer for the tribe.
And I'm Crystal Bowers, Climate Resiliency Policy Coordinator.
And we're really happy to be with you today. Cody Motlow is our Climate Resiliency Outreach Coordinator. So policy and outreach go hand in hand, and it's central to what we do here for the tribe. So back in the end of 2020, so 2-3 years ago, the tribe started a climate resiliency program. I was happy to join it at the time. And the goal is really to understand the multiple risks of climate change and how we can protect the tribe's land, property, and people, first and foremost. And we really focus on climate resilient strategies that utilize both Western-based science and traditional ecological knowledge to protect a broken system of relationships, to repair a broken system of relationships, protect future generations, and heal the land and the ecosystems that we depend on. We really want to move towards indigenous science. That's the basis of ecology. It's just holistic thinking, and so we really want to bring kind of these 2 worlds together and change the way that we do research and planning in general, right, for ourselves and for all of Indian country. So we spread ourselves pretty thin, We are helping with research and technical support across departments. We're working on communication strategies. We participate in peer learning, peer exchanges with, many different organizations across the country. First and foremost, we represent tribal interests with all of our interactions with different agencies. And we deeply involve the community in everything that we do, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Climate change education goes both ways. It's not one directional, right? So our first objective in our program is to provide technical support to departments. We want to lead integration of indigenous values into tribe-wide climate research, policy development, and resiliency investments. So there's a lot of projects going on already. We want to make sure that what we hear from the community is being heard by all the different departments in the tribe, in comprehensive planning, in the vulnerability assessments for cultural resources and environmental, classic kind of vulnerability assessments. We have a lot of water issues and wind and other stuff going on, for Hollywood. So making sure that we understand all the different impacts and what the departments need to do to protect people and property here with cultural values at heart. There's also a lot of data gaps in Indian country, so we work really hard to fill some of those. And we all know why, right? We know that there's been a lot of politics around climate change for the last couple decades, but if you look at what people have been saying for a long time from experience, and also from the ice core data, from any of the data that you see, we know that climate change is happening. And probably the easiest way to visualize this is that, yes, carbon dioxide has been fluctuating for millions of years, but recently, since the Industrial Revolution, it's going exponentially up, right? And so this is wreaking havoc on our planet. We know this, and the evidence is in the ice core data. So yes, there's natural fluctuation, but what we're seeing now is nothing like anything the planet has ever seen before. Locally, we're seeing these impacts already. We have sea level rise and groundwater rise here. We have changing rainfall patterns. That means in the summer, we're predicted to see 50% less rainfall in our wet season, which means additional droughts. But when it does rain, it comes all at once in these really intense downpours. And we don't have capacity in our soils anymore for the rainfall to go out to the sea because sea level rise and groundwater rise is coming up. And there's hardly any soil left for the rainfall. So we have all these hydrological concerns. We also have saltwater intrusion that's coming into our drinking water wells. There's even more than ocean acidification. We've seen tons of algae blooms and all sorts of toxic things happening in our oceans and in our bays because of the extreme heat and the additional pollutants. We also have temperature extremes, like many of you do across the country. We're seeing lots of highs and lows, and our habitat zones are shifting because of it. We used to be subtropical, now we're becoming tropical, so there's more invasive species kind of creeping into our ecosystems. And with that, it's getting harder and harder to have control over our food systems because the environment is changing so much, and the cost of fuel can cause distribution shortages. So these are all climate impacts that we're already experiencing. If we look at the FEMA data set, we can see that Central and South Florida, where the Seminole Tribe of Florida has lands, we're at higher risk from all of the categories combined for FEMA than most of the rest of the country. We're at very high risk here. So it's important that we act on climate change now. Crystal, you want to talk about one of the impacts?
Yeah, so one climate impact is extreme heat. It's not talked about nearly enough, but it's just starting to be talked about more in the media. So as you know, as CO2 concentrations increase, temperature also increases, like Ed was saying in the last, in his presentation. And so historically, our reservations were getting 20 days or less of extreme heat days, which are days that feel like over 105. So here in Florida, we have not only just heat, we have high humidity, and the humidity exacerbates the feels like the heat feels like even worse with the humidity. And so by mid-century, we're expected to be having up 60 to 120 days that feel like over 105. And then by late century, you see here we have over 140 days for one of our reservations. So extreme heat contributes to 5,600 deaths in the U.S., but that is almost certainly underestimated because of the way the hospitals in the United States records death from weather-related injuries. So it's almost certainly higher. But already extreme heat is a significant concern in Big Cypress, Brighton, and Immokalee. And in this past summer, a lot of us here that live in Florida, we experienced a really harsh summer. It was crazy hot. I think we had like over 50 days of just like 100 degrees or more weather, and that's not normal. We don't usually get to 100 degrees here in Florida, even though we're known as the sunshine state. We don't really get that high of temperature. And our Brighton community and the cattle owners, they received they experience these high temperatures during their cattle loading season, when they load the cattle up and ship them off to slaughter. And so they had to work really quickly to get that done before the high temperatures affected them and the cattle, because the cattle are also affected by extreme heat. But there is some good news. I know we just scared you all with all this information, but in our program we like to, end with hope and things that can be done to kind of lessen these burdens for us all. So this is if the entire global community does actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we can limit the amount of extreme heat days in South Florida. And so that brings us to this quote here. The tribe is so closely linked to the land that we say if the land dies, then the tribe dies. So it is extremely important that we protect our land and our environment here in South Florida. So our second objective for the program is to engage with the community. We do that in a number of ways that are comfortable for tribal members. We provide opportunities for the community to engage in climate dialogue. And then we also give them experiential learning. Jill's gonna talk about these later, but one thing is like, we show the Path of the Panther movie here on the reservations, 5 reservations here. And then we also did a survey because this program started during the COVID pandemic, and we didn't want to just come in and tell tribal members what they needed to do. We really wanted to ask them what they wanted to do in response to climate change. And so we put out this survey on WebEx, meeting with tribal members, asked them what climate resilient strategies do you want to support? And you can see here 102 wanted renewable and reliable energy, 140 to protect habitat and traditional plants, and another big portion is food sovereignty and sustainable building standards. And this past year, 2023, our survey was in person because COVID restrictions were lifted. And so we had this idea to have like 5 or 6 options that they can vote on, and we had jars that they could fill with marbles. But Jill got a little cheap, and she didn't want to buy the marbles. She wanted to buy the beads, but she didn't. So she bought beads but didn't know the size. So they were like little tiny things, and these jars were like huge. And so, by the time we were done collecting the responses, there was like these little beads just rolling around in there. It didn't look as cool as we wanted it to look, but it still worked.
Even our signage was like, don't lose your marbles. Come, tell us. It was all about marbles. And then I just got that sticker shock, when I was about to check out. But I should have done it because I don't know my bead sizes. I'm embarrassed. My mom was so mad at me when I told her I messed up the bead sizes. She was mortified because she does jewelry. But yeah, people still came over. They saw the big jars. They saw we were doing something different. And they were like, hey, what are you guys doing? But you couldn't really see how many people had participated because the beads were so small. But it's okay. Live and learn, it's the little things. We still got good data.
Yeah, so here are some of the results from that survey. A lot of people wanted solar panel shade structures in all of the reservations. And a pollinator garden was a good one for Hollywood, and community garden for Hollywood as well. BC already has a community garden, so that's why you don't see too many for BC.
And shade. A lot of people wanted more shade trees.
A lot of people wanted shade trees. Yeah. And you could see a close-up of Hollywood right here. Like I said, solar panel and shade trees. And a community garden was the biggest asked from the Hollywood community. And we asked them, what does climate resilience means to you? And we put all the answers in a word cloud. And the top answers was strength, community, and survival.
We have water bottle or computer stickers that have our logo and those 3 subwords, so they're by the coffee if anybody wants some. Feel free to support our program and know that we're supporting you and all that you do too, right? We're in this together. We really wanted to have the community define resilience for themselves at the very beginning of our process because, no offense to any of the engineers in the room, but you know, the classic resilience definition means like, how quickly can you bounce back from impacts to like current status quo? And we're like, you know, status quo is what got us here in this mess in the first place. Like, we don't want to bounce back to the status quo. That's the best we could hope for. Like, that's not at all what we want to do. Like, you know, we need to think forward. We need to think about the future. And some of that means going back, right? And asking folks like, what were things like before? I mean, there's a lot of healing that needs to happen and just rethinking. And so we wanted to open everything up in our program, including the title of what we do and the definition of what that means. So it's really important for us, you know, that definition, that it was come from the community from that first year, and those conversations, really important to us. So one of my favorite things is when I stop talking, because I talk way too much. But my favorite thing is our climate conversations aspect of our program. Cody Motlow, who couldn't be here today, has been running this segment of our program, and she's been interviewing tribal members about what's important to them in climate change, what they've seen in their lives, you know, where they think we're headed in the future. Some of those pieces made it in our Seminole Tribune. You can find those online. And lately, NLC, thank you very much, has been creating podcasts with us. The first ones of our program, you're getting to know us some here, but if you want to hear more, share it with others, that's available online. And the second one that they did, Cody and Crystal interviewed some young tribal women who just have the most amazing, powerful voices on climate change and food sovereignty. And gosh, you guys just talked about everything. Like I loved every single minute of it. So please check that out, that one especially. It's really, really powerful. We also, in our first couple years, you know, we wanted to get together with the community, but we didn't want to be like, this is a beautiful room, but you know, we didn't want to just be like inside doing workshop style. We wanted everybody to feel comfortable to come out and to talk. And so we started doing campfire circles called Gathering Fire. Which is like a Seminole, there's a Seminole word for that, like that's a concept, gathering fire. So maybe everybody has that, I don't know. But we loved these, we got really good traction with the community. It brought elders out to tell, you know, legends if they felt comfortable. The youth came to hear that from their elders, you know, to sit, and everybody got to talk about what they hope for the future, what they're scared of for the future, and really have this like intergenerational conversations like they should, right? So we were able to facilitate that without getting in the way of it, right? Almost took a back seat at the first few of them, and that's fine. Just providing space for that. So here's a few photos from some of our gathering fires. This one was in Hollywood. Last year, we invited our environmental team out to talk about bats and the importance of, you know, pollinators and night skies and ecosystems and all sorts of things, you know, that tied in. And Big Cypress, we had really good attendance as well with that program. We just love this program. And when we did it in Brighton, Cody led this one, and we had more than 60 tribal members come out. That was double of what we expected. Like, we ran out of food in 20 minutes, and like we all had to just like run in the kitchen in the cultural center and like just start like cooking more stuff. The ladies that run the cultural center really saved our tushies on that one, because luckily they had like Spam and rice and all sorts of stuff that they could just make, because we had, I mean, it was more than 60 people. At some point, we just had to stop counting. People were everywhere. It was really well attended. People loved it, and they said they hadn't done anything like that in a really long time. Like, some of those kids had never had that experience of listening to the elders with the legends and stuff, which is a really important part of the culture. So we were really proud to be able to bring that to that community. And then another really important part of our program that the community said was important to them, and it's really important to us, so we're thrilled to work on this, is food sovereignty. Food sovereignty is a huge part of climate change. Taking care of the earth and taking care of ourselves is the same thing. So we have discussions on eating healthy and traditional foods. We tour different community gardens. And this program started during the pandemic. So we were kind of going in between having guest speakers through workshops, and then having the restrictions lifted and being able to do things together, and then having to go back again. So this program's kind of ebb and flowed between the virtual and the in-person space as needed over time. But we're really starting to get to the part of the program where we're able to learn from each other and start doing things together, right? Help out at the Big Cypress Community Garden, really start to move some project concepts forward that can make real change. So I don't know if you want to talk more about this one. This is,
Oh my God, I
We
could
love
talk
this
about
one.
food sovereignty for forever. It's like, this should be its own presentation,
Yeah.
honestly, because it is so important to all of our lives. Like we've seen with the beginning of the COVID pandemic, I mean, our food systems pretty much shut down. There was a lot of difficulty for people to find food in the grocery stores. I mean, people were, going crazy, especially with toilet paper. My gosh. But with climate change, it's going to exacerbate those problems by a lot. A lot of scientists predict that our corn crops are going to fail pretty soon, which is the basis for all of our food, because corn is fed to beef, to pigs, to chicken. And so once those fail, all of our meat is going to be crazy expensive. And so it's already important right now that you have your own gardens or your own community gardens. And to eat locally and to eat plant-based, you don't have to completely cut meat out of your diet, but the more plant-based you eat, the better for the environment, because to feed cows specifically is the most environmentally damaging agricultural practice, because they require a lot of food for very little meat production for us. I mean, I still eat meat, but I'm making my way to veganism very slowly, but I'm getting there. And I have my own garden, and I contribute to the BC Community Garden as well. And it not only does it help the planet, but it helps you as well. It brings you out into nature, for one, and it makes you see where your food comes from and how difficult it is to grow food. I've killed a lot of plants, and that's okay. That's okay. You're going to kill a lot of plants, and you don't have to learn it all at one time. You can start with, I don't know, your favorite fruit. That's how I got started. I wanted to try watermelon, like homegrown watermelon. I've never been able to try it because I can't grow it for some reason, haven't figured it out. But food tastes better when it's picked at the peak of ripeness. So I wanted to try that, and I've been able to try it with a few things, not watermelons. So I could keep going on forever, but let's keep moving forward.
yeah, and it's interesting because the Seminole Tribe is the second largest cattle grower raiser in all of Florida, but because there's so much land, it's really sustainable, right? I think it's like 2 cattle per acre or something. It's unbelievable, but it's those large-scale industrial practices that most of our meat comes from that's really detrimental to the planet, and to ourselves and to the cattle. So having more of that local control of the food system ties right back directly to knowing and loving the land better too. Keeping the cattle on the land longer, all of that, having local control, it's all part of the piece of the puzzle. So yeah, community engagement is the heart of our program. It's what we love to do because climate change planning is really, really scary. We told you about all the threats that we're already facing at the beginning, but we have to keep hope up. And we don't want to just come to the community at the end of a project and be like, hey, we figured out what we need to do, sign off on it. Like, no. We've been bringing the community together and having these conversations through events for the last couple years so that we really feel we know what the community wants and that they're engaged in everything that we do. So that when we get to that planning, which we hope to do this year, we're already there, right? Us in the departments and the community are all hand in hand as we move forward now into the planning process. We have the BC Community Garden here. We toured some indigenous farms in New York this summer. That was amazing. We had a sustainability summer book club one summer, and we read Braiding Sweetgrass. We were fortunate enough for Robin Wall Kimmer to actually come that next fall and meet the community and meet 200 of our students at a school assembly. It was amazing. All the kids got a book at the end, signed. I mean, like tears, right? Like we were just crying. I cry so much at this job with joy. It's crazy. Crystal ran the Path of the Panther. That was awesome opportunity that you brought in. That wasn't even scheduled. She just found the opportunity and brought it in. Path of the Panther, do you want to tell them about this film just really quick? It's wonderful.
Yeah, sure. So Path of the Panther follows the plight of the panther recovery here in South Florida. It starts with stories from like the 80s when there was only like 25 individual panthers remaining up to now where there's like, I think almost like 300 individuals. And we got to meet Carlton Ward Jr., who's a National Geographic photographer, and his pictures and film were the foundation of the Path of the Panther film. And it followed a few panthers, I think it was like 3, like through their recovery of like being struck by cars, which is a major killer of panthers here in South Florida. Crossing highways, they get hit by vehicles. And yeah, it was just an amazing experience. We got to go to 5 reservations, and Carlton Ward, he only came out to 1 in BC, but it was still amazing. And I think it was our most attended event as well. And then I also wanted to mention the New York one. Just something that we learned from the New York tribes is they had a lot of food sovereignty programs as well that started off as like money-making ventures, but then they quickly would realize that it wasn't feasible to make money off of their food. So then they switched to just like as a service for tribal members. They provided like corn and beans and squash, and one tribe even had hunters that would go out and hunt meat for the community members, and it was all a service for their community members. It was set up as a money-making venture, but then quickly just as a service.
So money isn't always the best criteria for success, right? So make sure we're looking at how we're measuring things, right? What are we judging different options on, right? And our third objective is strategic partnership development. We have to deal with a lot of local, regional, state, and federal agencies to protect the tribe's interests and to promote our interests at all times. This can take a lot of time and a lot of meetings. We do go after grants sometimes. We do partner with academic institutions on research sometimes. It's really hard to find those right opportunities to figure out when is the flow there, when is the trust there. So this also takes some time. But we try to make this fun too, right? Like, we don't want to like weigh ourselves down with all of those commitments. So we find good partners, we go with that energy. This last year, we were able to partner with ITAP. Does anybody here know what ITAP? Yep. Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals. We were able to run a 3-day climate workshop for our staff and community. They said that it was one of their most successful workshops ever. They got really excited about it because everybody always talks about community engagement, but they had never ever seen anybody do it. Like, we actually brought the community up to Ocala for 3 days and had them there at the training, and they said they're just never in the room. It's always the staff. And so we all just had this like profound experience from being together for 3 days. We definitely didn't stay on schedule, and it was wonderful, right? It was great. The conversations that came out of that were just like natural and important, and everybody felt comfortable speaking, and it was a really good model for us to bring forward in the future workshops and conversations that we want to facilitate. So they're great facilitators. That went really, really well. So for us, strategic partnership development really means relationships, right? And it means focusing our energy on who we want to be with and what we want to do.
So here are some ways you can take action as an individual. You could plant trees, which lower surface and air temperature by at least 20 degrees, and drive electric vehicles, or if you can, take public transportation. Install solar panels on your home, and eat healthy, like I was just saying with the food sovereignty stuff, which I could talk forever about. It reduces your greenhouse gases by 70%. Yeah. You can also fly less, and I think the most important thing, though, is you should vote in your local, state, and federal elections for candidates that support climate change initiatives, and invest in green companies, because 100 companies in the world are responsible for 71% of global emissions.
And Crystal brought this to me, which I didn't realize. It's so important. Oil and gas are among the biggest polluters. We know that. And there's just strong links between that industry and the epidemic of murdered and missing Indigenous women. So, all these things are tied together. It's impossible to untie them. And when you're on the right path, there's just so many benefits to strengthening your community and protecting them. So we are doing a lot already, both personally, like Crystal was talking about, and here at work. I mean, we're supporting 2 different vulnerability assessments, one that focuses on cultural resources, one that focuses on modeling hydrological impacts of the Hollywood Reservation. We support 4 stormwater master plans that just got completed last year. The solar installations on critical facilities that Harvey talked to you about, that's such great work. We're happy to support that when needed. The food sovereignty work that we talked about, the extreme heat campaign. We partner with our emergency management and our integrative health department to provide community education at lots of events on that. Not this time of year when it's nice and cool, but for about 8 months out of the year here, it's just way too hot. So that campaign is most of the year, just not right now. And we hope to be getting funding soon so that we can start to pull all of this energy together into doing our first climate action plan. And getting some of these sustainable design guidelines and extreme heat mitigation measures actually rolling out in the community. Because we know that the climate threats are not, intangible. They are already happening to all communities, and they're happening to tribal communities more than everybody else. Climate, because of forced relocation, tribes are more at risk of climate threats than anybody else. So we don't have time. There's urgency here. We want to move slowly. We want to move with the community. And at the same time, we have to move quickly to protect the tribes. One way that we can do this is taking a look at our opportunities now with co-management. We're starting to make strides with Everglades National Park and Big Cypress preserve next to the reservation on how we can work closer together on co-management to take care of the local ecosystems and to have a little bit more control over the water and the way it flows and the quality that goes through the reservations and into the native lands and the natural areas that the tribe has rights and access to, right? So trying to take a little bit more of a leadership role there. It's hard. And when we do work with partners, we consider it an invitation for them to go beyond the land acknowledgement, to really understand what it means to see ecological resources as relationships, to create those opportunities for shared management, and to move from consultation to consent. So we're really trying to push that forward when we do partnership development. Lay out very clearly what our expectations are. So there, you got a little bit of a snippet of our program. We're happy to answer any questions. Really happy to be able to meet you all today and to be here at this conference with you again this year. Such an amazing conference, and we really enjoy everything that everybody else is, all the other speakers and the side conversations we have. This room is incredible, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh my gosh, these ladies are hungry, man. Wow. Do you have any questions real quick? Yes, in the back. Coming back there. Get your questions ready. Hey, man, we got all of our sandwiches downstairs ready, too. They got a good spread down there, okay? So do y'all, no, you do your thing, man. You take your time. We're okay.
Thank you. thank you guys for your presentation. And someone who lives in Florida and someone that works with the Seminole Tribe and worked on the vulnerability assessment for cultural resources, thank you for what you do. I truly mean that. You guys are awesome sauce. You're an amazing, positive part of the tribal community. So thank you. And you know, I don't mean this to come across wrong. I'm very proud to see you guys up there, because the idea of a climate resiliency office and officer originated in this room at this conference, the first or second one. And it was like a gee whiz. It was a dream. And we weren't sure it would happen or anything like that. And seeing you guys up here, it warms my heart. Thank you so much for everything you do for the Seminole Tribe.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you for those.
Thank you, James.
Thank you for those kind words. Anyone else? Anyone else before we get out of here? Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to go ahead and dismiss you guys for lunch here. And we're going to go downstairs. You know, obviously the same old, and then we're going to come right back up here. All of our presenters, they need their time, okay? So we're going to get right back up here at 1 p.m. My bad in advance. You're going to see me downstairs. There's sandwiches. I won't be eating one of those because I always like this place called John the Baker. It's a pizza spot, and I got somebody bringing me some, so you can't have any of it. Oh, what?